Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced and welcome to another JavaScript Quickie. You can find all my links to my blogs, my podcast, my social over there at alexmerced.com. Probably the easiest place to do it. Now, here we go. I want to talk about impure and pure functions. Okay, so there are benefits to writing pure functions, but first let's understand what they are. So the best way to understand what a pure function is to understand what an impure function is. So essentially, when you break the rules, when you make a function impure, is when you do two things. Your function is going to refer to things that are outside of it, okay, and directly. And two, it instead of returning like a value, it will change things outside of it. Okay, and the problem is you never know what's outside of it. So there's no way you can control what's outside of the function. So it makes the function sort of unpredictable as far as what the results are, which can create issues. Also prevents you from doing certain optimizations. Okay, so in this case, we have a variable, a mutable variable, because it's a let, so I can change it. And I'm going to console log it, and that's going to tell me, hey, it's 1. So we have this function, but notice that this function takes no arguments. Okay, so there's nothing gets put inside of it. So the only way I'm referring to A, but the only reason I'm able to do that is because A was declared in the global space. Now, if I were using this function in multiple places, can I guarantee that A was declared in every scope? Maybe not. And that could be a problem. Okay, so that's one problem with impure functions. And it's changing that variable. Okay, so I could be running my program and noticing that a value of my variable is changing, but not really be able to easily diagnose where that's happening, because it could be happening at some other point in my code that's not really directly connected to that variable in a clear way. Okay, so but the function does what it's supposed to do. When I invoke add 1, it will add 1 to A, so A will become 2. Okay, because that's what it does. It says A equals A plus 2 now. Okay, now a pure function would do this in a different way. Instead, let's say we have our variable B, okay, a mutable variable, but we're not going to mutate it in the function. Instead, the function takes an argument. So the idea is that if the function does need information, does need access to values that are external to it, those values should always be passed in as an argument. Okay, so the only way stuff from the outside gets into the function should be arguments. That's part of being pure. And essentially the end result should just be a return value, and that function again should only depend on those arguments, because that way the function will always return the same result given the same argument. So again, given the value of 1, this is always going to return 2, because 1 plus 1 is always going to be 2. If I gave it 2, it's always going to be 3. There's no chance of the function not doing something that I can't predict. Okay, consistent arguments should yield consistent return values, and that allows us to optimize the function through a technique called memoization, which I'm not going to cover here. That's a whole video in itself. I do have videos on it, so feel free to look up those videos. But again, so we get those benefits. I can now optimize this for better performance. Okay, especially if it was like a really complicated calculation. But basically, instead, what I'm doing is I'm taking the value of B and I'm going to mutate it outside. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to assign the return value of add 1 pure to B, and B still becomes 2, but it's not the function that's changing it. The function is just giving the new version of it, being given the old version, and I am explicitly mutating that value of B, which again is going to be easier for me to troubleshoot because I can see exactly, hey, B was changed there. I can see the equal sign. I can see that the assignment occurred. It's going to be much easier for me to locate in my code and to be able to kind of track down using my debugger tools. Okay, so this overall is going to be easier for me to debug, but also easier for me to optimize. But if I run the code, we'll see that in both situations, the variable started out as 1 and became 2. It works. But again, there's benefits to having a pure function where all external data is passed in through arguments. It returns a value, and that value should always be the same given the same arguments. Okay, and yeah, that's pretty much, and doesn't change anything outside of it. There's no side effects. Side effects are when a function changes things external to itself. So no side effects. All info is being passed as arguments. All info is leaving as a return value. Nothing else is happening. Okay, makes it very predictable, optimizable, debuggable. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I'll see y'all later.